I'm Marco. I'm one of the co-founders of the Firehose Project, and I'm here with Erin Kim to talk a little bit about her journey to become a web developer, learn how to code, and where she started and where she at now, and touch base with her. And Erin has a background in arts history from the University of Maryland. She worked previously as a receptionist at JWT in New York City, where that's a big marketing communications company. And now she works at the Art Genome Project at Artsy in New York City, where she uses all her cool coding skills to make awesome things happen. And yeah, she's an alumni for the Firehose Project. And welcome to the show, Erin.
Thanks so much. Hi.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about, so you started art at the University of Maryland, and then what did you do before you started, developing that passion for code, and before you started coding?
Well, I mean, so I guess like I always really liked like creating like websites when I was like little, like when I was like 5 or 6. So I would go on like GeoCities and like, and like look, just like play around with like the, like look in the back end and check out the HTML and see what I can do to like customize my own little, like my own website and stuff. I always like had fun doing that. And then I remember like it kind of just like fell off my radar for a long time. I started to like really love like art and art history, and that was like my main focus and passion for a majority of my life and stuff. But I guess like when I was working as a receptionist at JWT, it had like set hours, like really good, like nice job where I get to leave like my work in the office and come home. So during like when I during my free time, I kind of just like fell into coding. I discovered all these like amazing online courses, free online courses, like on edX, and then I also checked out like Lynda and Skillshare and RubyMonk. And RubyMonk was where I was like, oh, like this is really cool. Like this is a completely new way of thinking for me. And then I started like it took me about a year of like like fiddling around and like playing just like taking classes on my own, and then after that I decided I really enjoyed learning about this, and I think it was like a really useful skill to have. So I started researching different like boot camps and different classes, and I found out about the Firehose Project and decided that this was like the best fit for me, and I really liked the curriculum and everything that I read about it. So yeah.
Cool. And so when you said you mentioned you went for about a year teaching yourself how to code and go through. So you mentioned edX, right? That's a big platform where there's a lot of actually university grade kind of courses on there. Is that right?
Yeah.
And what kind of courses did you do in edX, for example? Just so like viewers can look and maybe they want to do the same ones that you did. Do you remember?
I don't quite remember. I know on Skillshare I took HTML and CSS. I remember doing that, and then on Lynda I did JavaScript. On edX I did Intro to Computer Science. I forget which school though. I just remember doing like a course.
Yeah. So for everyone who's not as familiar then for all the online learning platforms, so edX is mostly like university courses, right? And it's mostly like overview, so introduction to computer science. Oftentimes isn't, at least that's my opinion, doesn't go as deep into the coding, but it gives you a really nice overview of computer science, for example, and then like lynda.com or skillshare.com, where you actually follow, oftentimes like, I think they're mostly video-based tutorials. You actually go in and you can build a simple web application, build a simple Ruby script or whatever you do, or in JavaScript, or build a splash page or a landing page with HTML and CSS. Cool.
Yeah.
So, and then where are you now? What are you doing right now? I just want to get the overview, right? I introduced you. You're at Artsy right now. Maybe give a 2-minute pitch for what Artsy does and what you're doing there.
Yeah. So Artsy is actually a company I've been really excited about for a long time. I found out about it through like a New York Times article, and then also like I remember, and then there's like this really big art fair here called the Armory Show, and they created this. Yeah, in New York, yeah, it's one of the big ones. And then they created this app where you get it made like the fair going experience like really fun, where you get to
Mhm.
like pick all these like artworks that you liked, and it'll tell you like where it would be, and you got to kind of like semi curate your own like favorite works, and also it would like and on Artsy.com, or sorry, Artsy.net, they would also show like they would just recommend all these like amazing artworks to you based on like your likes and preferences. So in like a nutshell, Artsy is it's like an online platform that helps people like learn about art, discover art that they might have never have seen without Artsy, and then
Mhm.
also collect art and just also like kind of like curate your own little collection as well. Like you can like save like all the works that you like and stuff. So it's really great.
Wow, so that fits your
Um,
background of arts history, your bachelor's degree really well then.
yeah, I would say so. Yeah, it's really great. I'm really lucky. And then So yeah, it's been a company I've been like following for a while, and I've been using their services for a while. So when I left JWT to like focus on coding, and I remember like thinking to myself like, oh, like Artsy would be a really cool company to like try and work for.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, so it was like always on my radar, and I reached out to this she's this wonderful lady, Jessica. I reached out to her and I was like, hey, like, is there any like positions open for me? And she was like, actually, yeah, there's a spot, there's this internship at the on the Art Genome Project. So I applied and I got in. And so now I'm working. I'm helping the Art Genome Project out in terms of like as like a in terms of like analyzing different genes and just like um, and like also kind of like incorporating my art historical background and my newly found coding skills and like kind of like helping their workflow and such.
Great.
Sorry.
That's awesome. What does the
Yeah.
Art Genome, maybe for everyone who's not as familiar with Artsy, what does the Art Genome Project do at Artsy?
Okay. Yeah. So the Art Genome Project, it's an ongoing study that maps all the characteristics that like all the characteristics of artists and artwork that connect like these characteristics they'll connect like the world's artists and artworks together. Does that
Wow.
make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
So is
Um,
that part of their search engine?
yeah. So the Art Genome Project powers um, the search engine and the recommendation engine.
Mhm.
So based on these characteristics that these so the Art Genome Project has a whole team of art historians, and they're incredibly brilliant, and they've studied this for so long, and so these art historians they do a lot of research into um, I guess like or cataloging all these like artists and artworks based on like based on their like style,
Mhm.
based on their like formal qualities, like how it looks, and then with these characteristics, it'll match like like let's say you catalog this beautiful like this painting by Monet. It'll also like based on these characteristics, it'll also match the same ones that you tag on or not tag but like you catalog on like a contemporary work of art. So it'll like create these like really cool like associations based um, based on these genes or these categorizations
Gotcha.
um,
Wow, that sounds
that
pretty
researched.
complex.
Yeah, a lot of hard work goes into it, and a lot of research, and a lot of debate. So
Cool.
it's really cool. It's a really cool study.
Nice. And if I read, I just did a little bit of research on Artsy, especially once you landed the job there, and I was like, they raised over $25 million so far, and just 18 millions about a year ago. So they must be pretty big. How big is your team, and where are they headquartered? All in New York?
I know that the team is like about 80 people, and I know they have like people all over the world helping. I'm not sure exactly. Like that, the headquarters are located in New York City, right in like Soho, Tribeca area, with like beautiful 360 views of Manhattan. So.
Awesome, awesome. All right. I wanna zoom a little back and go like, we already talked a little bit why you decided to code and how you went through lynda.com, and you spent about a year going through those self-paced tutorials and trying to get a hang on HTML, maybe some Ruby and stuff. And then, is there anything like when you decided like, okay, I want to join a coding boot camp? Is there anything you did to prepare yourself? Is there anything else you did, or were you like just focusing more and more on picking up more and more coding skills beforehand? Is there anything like you could advise like other people who are thinking about joining a coding boot camp? It's like, hey, definitely make sure you do X, Y, and Z.
So I guess like when I was like researching coding boot camps, I wanted to make sure like it fit with my like current circumstance, well, my circumstances at the time. So I was still working, and I wasn't quite sure that I wanted to just like 100% like quit and and go to like a in-person full-time boot camp and everything. So I started to look for alternatives, and I wanted something that was like very comprehensive with like a personal touch, like the idea of a mentor really appealed to me. And then also like I wanted to like I remember reading like in like different articles when I was like doing my research that like you should really like try to find a program that will just like really give you a solid understanding of the Ruby language and the Rails framework. And I thought, yeah, and I didn't want to just like create a bunch of like Rails apps without like not really knowing what was going on in the back, the back end. And I found out about the Firehose project, and I submitted my email address to get the course curriculum, and I really appreciated that there was like such a personal touch to everything, that it seemed like they really cared about which mentor you got paired up with, what your goals were, or what the goals were and stuff. And I was like, okay, yeah, the Firehose project, that's what I want to go with.
That's awesome. And just for everyone else, right, when Erin mentions things like Ruby and Rails and the framework, right, Ruby is the programming language that we're writing the code in, and Rails is a framework that helps us build web development, web applications, and do web app development faster. So just that, and the backend is everything. You can imagine, like I said, the database-driven side, not so much what the user sees. I just want to make sure we have all these words that we're throwing around here, the developer technical words, that everyone is up to speed on them. Cool. And then, how was the whole experience like? Let's talk a little bit about while you're in the Firehose project, right? When you went through, like, how's the project structured, and what happened when you started in your first or second week?
With the Firehose project, so I remember like first going through the like tutorials where I got to create like web applications, and I remember it was like first like a generator of quotes, and then it would like increase in complexity. But then also like with my personal mentor Ken, he would also like give me these like coding puzzles that I would have to solve in Ruby that like actually kind of just like made me really struggle with the language, and then like actually like really learn it, But yeah, so I remember those tutorials. There were the Firehose office hours where all the students, no matter where they were in the course, would come together with their questions, and that's when like I was like, oh, like I got to see what other people were working on, and it kind of like created this sort of like online community, And then yeah, so there was like the Firehose project or Firehose office hours, and then the coding the coding challenges were really like awesome, like where I like like just like really struggling with like learning a language and stuff, like that was really important. And then I remember like whenever I had a question about like anything, I would just shoot an email out to Ken, and like he would get back to me like so quickly. It was like even when I didn't expect it, I was like, oh wow, he answered back already. That's awesome. so it was just really great. Like I felt really spoiled being able to talk to like a really like skilled coder and ask him any questions, no matter how silly or how, like I got to ask him any questions and didn't feel like I was bothering anybody, bothering him or anything like that. So that was really awesome.
Nice. So I wanna quickly zoom back. You said these coding challenges. That's for writing Ruby code, right? How difficult were they? Were they like something that you see like a lot of people maybe go through Code Academy or maybe Code Wars and doing those kind of challenges where they trying to get from one level to the next? What would you say? How would you rank them?
They were first pretty like I remember the very first one was pretty like I solved it on my like own like it didn't take me that long, but then the other ones were like, oh my god, like I I really struggled with it, and at like certain points I needed Ken to like, or I needed my mentor to just like kind of like push me in the right direction without giving it away. But I remember like Googling and just like that's one thing that the Firehose project taught me, was just to like Google like just don't be afraid of Googling. Like I think I Googled so many different things like just to solve one like just to solve one coding problem, and I would be like on Stack Overflow and like checking out the Ruby docs and like just and going in other different directions as well, just trying to solve these problems, and just like trying to solve those problems and Googling like that, and like really like just delving deep into the Ruby language in that way, kind of just made like really helped me like really like accelerated the learning process, but also made me like realize that this is the life. Like you're going to be Googling like all the time, and you're going to be like Googling bugs all the time and stuff, and
Yeah.
like problems that you don't know. So yeah.
It's kind of simulating the real world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just for everyone, giving a background, right? I mean, Erin, you already said that like those coding challenges that we have are really really difficult. It's a lot of algorithmic stuff in there. And we actually, I don't know if you know that, but we actually choose those based on real questions that we would ask people in a technical interview when they apply for a job. So some of them are from PayPal, other of them are like from Yahoo or TechCrunch companies. Like these are real questions and real challenges that people receive when they want to apply for jobs, and they're hard. Like some of them, I'm sure, have taken you more than just an hour or two. I hear from students it sometimes takes them like a full day or 2 days to write the code to solve one of those challenges. What was your experience? How long would it take you for like one of the harder ones towards the end of the program?
Like a while.
Okay, more than 4 hours. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, more than 24 hours. More than yeah, a long time.
And that's totally normal. They're designed for that, right? They're like, this is like you go through one of these challenges, and then afterwards, when you solve them, you're like end up on a different level, and you're like, oh, and these doors open, and you all of a sudden realize what else you can do, and now you're on the next level, and you can solve much more harder challenges that come up on your daily life as a web developer. That's awesome. And then what else? So the coding challenges are like obviously they're challenges, right? They're supposed to challenge you. How did it work on the other side where you built the web application? So you said you built an advice generator, and then how did that go? Was that as challenging, or did that come more natural to you?
So that was like a really great the first web application we built, which was the quotes generator. Like that was a great introduction to Rails, to the Rails framework, and and like I thought that everything, like pretty much all like the foundations were covered in that one Rails application that we built together, which was amazing, because like sometimes it takes like people need to read like the whole like Rails tutorial like by Michael Hartle, and like like I felt like a lot of the things that he raises were touched upon in that one application that we built. But then like once we built more complex ones, then like it would get more like then like the fact we would build upon that foundation.
Yep.
So, but I thought that was really great. And yeah, I had fun building the Rails applications as well. Like I love Rails, and it's fun. Like I thought that was like the most like fun part. So I felt like, the coding challenges were like the stuff that like, okay, I have to sit down, like buckle down and like do this. And then once I finished that, or like, and then the rails that were like, like it was like a treat, like it was like fun to do, and the tutorials were really well written and clear, and the forum and the emails were also really helpful as well. Like whenever you did like get stuck along the way.
Yep. So you could throw your error message in the forum and get help.
Yeah.
Cool. And then, so that's kind of like the first, I don't know, how long were you on the coding challenges? I think lasted throughout the whole program, but at one point, I know you participated in the group project. So when did that start about, and what did you do on the group project?
So during the group project, I was kind of like thrown into it like a month after everyone else like was building it and stuff. So that was really fun. That was really cool because I got to see code that like really, really like really good people were writing. I remember one guy, he was writing code in PHP for a long time before he decided to learn Ruby, and his like he wrote like really really solid code that I got to like that I got to learn from, as well as like my other team members who were like just really like they were just really good at what they were doing. And so I got to learn from that, just like seeing other people's code. Then we also got to, I mean, it was all like, I know that I got a pretty good like foundation on like test-driven development um, and on like like pull requests and collaborating on GitHub, and I thought that was extremely useful, especially in hindsight as well. I think. And then what
So hold on,
else?
before, just want to be clear like what all this means, right? So we took Erin and we put her on a group project, just like in the real world, right? We'll say like, hey, this group project is already on the way. Jump on and jump in the deep end of the pool and actually start contributing some code to what the other people are already doing. And then when Erin says like pull requests and working together as GitHub and test-driven development, right? These are all things that real teams, techniques, tools, or best practices that real teams in the real world use every single day. Test-driven development, basically writing software tests, automated tests to test that none of the features break of our application. That kind of test coverage is always there to make sure that you're not breaking anything. And then the other things like pull requests. That's a way of how web developers collaborate on code and work together as a team, so that other people can check the code before it actually gets pushed live, or before the technical gets merged into a branch, a master branch, where the latest version of the code is. So you learned all that on the group project as well, actually, while doing that with other team members, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny because I was asked questions about like test-driven development and like version control, like through GitHub and such, during my interviews and
Oh, cool.
stuff. So yeah, so I was like, oh God, like I'm really thankful for that group project, and like I just really had fun like develop like writing code to like have like writing code for like the king piece and and the rook, or just like I'm still like struggling on this, but like with castling, I remember like having to write some code for both the king and the rook, and
Yep.
that was really fun too.
So
Like a fun
zooming
puzzle.
out again, Erin built a chess game together. We have a lot of people in the group projects build chess games, and so you were responsible for the king and the rook, I'm assuming, and you had to write the whole code to make sure that the king is moving valid across the chessboard.
Right. I remember one of my team members, I think it was like Nan, or it was like another team member wrote the code for the rook, but I had to go back in there and like put some features for like castling, which is where like if neither of the pieces have moved,
Mm-hmm.
and we had to make a way to like keep track of all that. If neither of the pieces have ever moved in the game and the king is 2 spaces away from the rook, then he can castle away from danger. So so yeah, like I remember having to write some code for that.
And then you wrote the
Yeah.
tests as well to make sure that everything is well tested. So when somebody else builds on top of that, your the castling move wouldn't break. Is that correct? You had to do that.
Yeah.
Could you get away with not writing any tests, or what would happen when you basically put your code up for review in one of these pull requests? What would the other team members do, or what would you do if somebody else on your team would do that?
If there was no test, I mean, I just I remember once I wrote something and I didn't write a test for it, and then everything started breaking. So just always write tests. I don't know. You just have to. It's like
That's
like
in the real world.
it's just 101 code coding or collaboration 101. Just always write tests, and
Cool.
also just for yourself. Yeah.
Always be testing, but that's something that you need to learn, and you need to go through and then really appreciate it. And I mean, I always think like, as soon as you start working together with other people, you really appreciate the testing and the pull requests and everything that goes along. So how did that, like you mentioned a little bit, like actually I was, during my technical interview, I actually was asked on a lot of these things, like how to work together with a group, how to do pull requests, version control, and maybe also some testing, TDD. What happened there in now you graduated, you applied, you got a technical interview at Artsy, and how did the group project prepare you for that interview, or how did that go? Really curious to hear that.
I mean, yeah, I feel like with Artsy and also just in general when I was talking to my other friends who went on technical interviews at other companies, I know that they always I feel like, if you don't have skills and if you don't have testing experience or and if you haven't done any version control at all, I feel like it would kind of set you back a little bit, especially because it's such a integral part of the workflow at any company. So I just think it's it's the foundation of what you need to know in order to become a developer at any at any company. It's just something that you just have to. It's just something. It's like on day one, this is what they'll teach you, or this is what they'll tell you. Yeah. So.
And so it's pretty good if you know that already.
Yeah, it's good. If I'm someone who's never really had any coding experience, and I was working in a completely different field, and I was going to my first interview for the for the first time, and I'm just really glad that I wasn't caught off guard or anything like that in terms of test-driven development.
Was Artsy
testing and version
control? Was Artsy your first technical interview that you went on?
No, it wasn't. I went on something else. I forget though.
That's okay.
I went on another
I was just curious. Wow, you
Huh?
went to one and you got a job immediately. That would be really cool, because usually you have to go on a few because you've never done that.
Yeah, yeah. I remember doing a phone interview and going on another one for another company, but Artsy was my number one.
That's always good, getting the number one.
Yeah.
So did you actually show them some of your code that you wrote maybe during the program, during the Firehose project, or did you show them some of the group project work, or how did that all work?
So I know that they asked for my GitHub, and they wanted to see what I've done so far, and then also I showed them the code that I wrote for the chess project. I had to I was telling them what I was working on and the parts that were actually working and and in production and everything. So yeah, that. Again, I'm just really I think that the group project is a total game changer. I think that everyone, whoever is in a coding boot camp, whether it's online or in person, they should always be looking. Oh, do they have a group project that's required? And if so, then yes, this is solid. And if not, then maybe consider something else. I mean, just yeah, I think the group projects, especially for people who are just starting to code and stuff like myself. you know.
Gotcha. Yeah, because it's like you actually went through code that you wrote together with your team. Was that in person or was it on the phone? Did you actually pull up your computer and show them your code and run them through and explain line by line what you've contributed?
Yeah, I did. I pulled out my computer. I remember I was like, oh, like I remember the interviewer asked me like, what are some of your projects? And I was like, oh, I have this. I'm working on this group project, this chess game, and he was like, oh, that's so cool. And I like pulled it open and I pulled open Sublime Text and I showed him everything.
Nice. That's really cool. So you ran them line by line, and then did they ask you obviously a question like, why did you decide to do this? Make it write that line that way, or what? Where's the test here, or how did you? How did you look at it, or how did you run them through? Do you remember it kind of in detail, or can you pull like one thing out that where you were like, oh, I think at that point they were pretty impressed, or?
I think I remember. It's been a. I know I wrote like. So there was this one problem that I was like working out with Ken and um, my mentor, and he knows that I was having some trouble with it. So yeah, anyway, but like he basically had me tell him what the issue was, and then just from like telling him what the issue is, I was like, oh wait, like I think I got the solution. But anyway, so like basically what I was trying to do was keep track of all the moves that a user would make. So I was like thinking like, oh yeah, I'll just keep track of it all in the database. But then like I was like, wait, no, that would be like too much. Like that would be like I don't think that's like necessary. So I remember telling him like that was like my initial solution, but then after some thinking and like ruminating over it, I remember like instead of just kind of switching it to like once a player makes a move, or actually like every single piece on the chessboard, it'll automatically have a default value to being like false, as in like it hasn't never moved. And then once a player like actually like triggers a move on the piece, it'll like the value will automatically, the Boolean value will automatically switch to true. And then if it's true, then it cannot castle. So this was like just trying to like solve castling. Anyway, yeah.
You getting
Sorry,
it?
it's just
I love how excited you are. This is like just for everyone else, right? This is like when we're getting deep into the logic of building something that's, let's say, more complex than just having a form where a user puts in an email and a name and hits save and it's saved to the database. We need to think about a lot more moving pieces, like how many pieces are in a chess game? A lot of pieces, and then you're just thinking about one individual piece and how that moves and how we can track all of that on a database. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Ken was super helpful like the whole time. Like the way he thinks is so different from the way I think. Like once I learned how to think like my mentor Ken, like I would be like so happy because like he thinks a different way, and I feel like it's like a totally like if you're a programmer, it's a totally different way of thinking, and I want to be able to do that. And I remember him like helping me like and like for the most like he really was like a really great mentor. So
Great.
I wouldn't have been able to write that. Maybe I don't know. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Well, that's what a mentor is for, right? You should have that person that helps you change your way of thinking and looking at it more like through a developer's eye versus like what you're used to, and then how to apply your new skills to with that different kind of thinking. And then all of a sudden it works. The two pieces fit together. Like your different kind of thinking of how you approach a technical problem, and then the technical ability to actually write the code to make that work.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's super good to hear. So yeah, this was super fun, but I want to know like one more question, Erin. It's like, how was your first week so far at Artsy? What did you do? I mean, super cool office views over Manhattan, I heard. Maybe lots of free snacks, but what happened like in the first few days? This is your second week, started today, right?
I think it's my third week. I think it's my third, but beginning of the third week.
It's already a blur. It's going so fast. That's a good thing.
Yeah, it is a good thing. I've been learning so much. like I've I've been helping the Art Genome Project, the team there, and
Mhm.
so I did some training where I learned how to how to catalog all the different artists and artworks like based on the categories that they have, and you can see all they have like I don't know how many. Let me see how many. They have like about like over 1,000 categories, and it's like all listed on their website if you want to go
Wow.
check it out. It's like under education, but they have put so much research and thought into coming up with these different categories, which they call genes. So anyway, like I've been learning all that, just trying to like really get a good grasp on all that, and then also yeah, like right now I've been doing a lot of research on contemporary works of art and artists as well, and trying to like find like really meaningful, interesting connections between like artists, like different artists of today and different artists in their artworks of the past. So that's what I've been working on. I'm also going to be helping them with like just like a whole bunch of projects, which I'm really excited for as well. So definitely will be posted about that.
That's great. They sound like they ramp you up really nicely. You know, they give you the freedom to understand the whole platform and then slowly ramp you up. So you're going to be helping them more and more on the technical side.
Yeah, hopefully. Like yeah, absolutely. So.
That's awesome. So yeah, do you have any, last advice for people who are right now, looking at coding boot camps, maybe looking at the Firehose project, looking at other options out there? What would you tell those people?
Um, I mean, I would just always say find the best fit for you. I think the Firehose project was the best fit for me, and I think that it would probably be the best fit for a lot of people that I know who are interested in coding as well. But yeah, just like always try to find like the best fit. Like in like like when you're looking at like universities, you always want to find the best fit. This is the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And I always say like I learn. I think that people will learn the fastest with a mentor. No matter what, I think there's just no other way to say it. Like, I mean, I'm sure you can learn a lot like on your own, especially if you're like driven and dedicated. But with a mentor, it just really accelerates your learning. Um, and yeah, so just try to find something with a mentor who's like a boot camp that will pair you up with a mentor who and they like really focus on that, like will really pay attention to like your needs and stuff. And then also like when you actually start like learning how to code, like don't like give up because I mean I remember like I was at some points I was like oh like I feel so overwhelmed and I remember feeling like I felt like very like lost. And I remember reading this article about like how like the first stage of coding is like the honeymoon phase, and then the second phase is like the desert of despair. I remember like reading those words. I remember that feeling. And then but then like I remember talking to one of my fellow students, Brant. Hi Brant. No, I'm just kidding. No, one of my fellow students, and he told me like just everyone goes through it at one point or another, and just like like if you keep like pushing through and like persistence is like the most important thing
Yep.
for learning something like difficult like this. So yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome. That's great advice to everyone. Keep moving forward. Never stand still, and always trying to keep learning more. And it's normal. Like everyone goes through this. These changes where things come a little easier to them, but then also times where it's a little harder. But that's needed to get to the next level and get a deeper understanding of what you're actually doing. So that's awesome. That's great advice. Yeah, sounds like we had an awesome time having you in the Firehose project, and we're super proud of you working at Artsy now and having that, kind of like your number one choice, and you got that. We're really stoked about that. So yeah, hey Erin, thank you so much for everything, and thanks for making time and talking to me a little bit. I'm sure this was helpful for a lot of people, and yeah, let's definitely stay in touch.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Okay, Erin, give me a thumbs up. Thanks so much, and I'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye, Marco. Take
Bye,
care.
Erin.